Okay, first of all, are there any questions on vowels and consonants? Anybody have any questions? Remember, you always have your questions ready so we don't have to spend a lot of time shuffling papers. Any questions on vowels and consonants, chapter 3? And for next week, you're going to read chapter, which chapter? 11, right, okay. Any questions? Yeah.
I compared the table in page 39 in our textbook, and then
They have it, yeah, they do have it.
really.
Look at column 2.
Oh yeah.
They have
yeah,
for
do they?
American and then for British, so heard in British and heard in American. So they do have it in there.
Excuse me.
This one? This is the vowel you're talking about, no?
No, sorry, it's this one.
Oh, poor. Okay. I think it's because that one often gets simplified to o, like for poor in British is poor or po. But actually it should be in here, poor. It's not as common now because people simplify it to o. But I think they should put it in here. I don't have an answer for that. They do explain it in the text, though. They do mention in the text when they talk about how poor is pronounced in British English. 42. There we go, yes. So where they're talking about ha. Poor, there we go. It's in the third to the last line of the first paragraph on 42. So some British speakers, usually old-fashioned, they do talk about it, so but they didn't put it in the list. Maybe because he considers it old-fashioned, and most people now say po instead of poor. It is a bit inconsistent, and you're very sharp for having caught that. That's very good. He should explain that, yeah? Good. Anything else? Yumi, go ahead.
Third paragraph, and it said British speakers have 3 different vowels in the words marry, marry, and marry.
Right.
But most Americans do not distinguish all these vowels.
Right.
But I think the first one is different from the second and the third one.
In Taiwan English.
Really?
And in some Americans English as well. On the East Coast, a lot of people have 3 vowels there. Like my friend from New York, he has 3 different vowels. My British friend has 3 different vowels. I have 1 vowel, all the same. Mary, Mary, Mary.
So, small.
On the East Coast, it will be marry, and then Mary, and then I don't know exactly how they say Mary, M-A-R-Y, but in British I know it better. It's marry, Mary, and Mary. It's 3 different ones in British. You can do it fine. You'll have no problem with it. 结婚 is marry. Marry, that's no problem. 快乐 is marry. And then M-A-R-Y is Mary. Mary. Right. I learned that from my teacher. And I listen and people really, and parents is the same vowel. Parents. Parents. I'm not very natural, but that's sort of the vowel. So marry, Mary, Mary in British. On the East Coast, some people also distinguish 3 vowels. I don't though, so it's hard for me. Mary, Mary, Mary.
I distinguish 2 vowels.
Yeah, in Taiwan English, they teach you marry for 结婚, right? That's more East Coast. And the other are marry, right?
I have one more question for page 27, first paragraph, the first line. It says the vowels of Spanish, Hawaiian, and Swahili, but not Japanese. Why they don't have Japanese here?
How do you say u in Japanese? It's like udon, udon, right? U. So it's not u. Yeah, that's why. The u is weird. In comparison to another language, they don't think it's weird. Okay, does that answer the question? Good. And Yumi, you had something?
It says in page 20.
But it says, make sure you
It
say
is-
says. Everyone
it
says.
Says.
Said.
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 Says.
Says.
Now I got it.
It says in page 28 that in general American English there are 14 or 15 different vowels.
Right.
And I'm wondering why does it note that 14 or 15 instead of a definite figure? And why remain the variability? Does it keep for certain rarely occurring vowel?
Nope. Everybody, what's the answer to that? You know the answer from last semester.
Americans don't distinguish Y and R.
Exactly. Am I one of them?
No.
Am I one of those people who does not distinguish ah and ah?
No.
No, I'm not, but about half the people are in the States. We mentioned it quite a few times last semester. So ah and ah are the same vowel for many Americans. Not for Brits. They distinguish them very clearly. But in American English, they've been coming together for over 100 years now. It's an ongoing process, and it's about half the people now, but it may not ever completely finish. So some people may always distinguish them, and a lot of people won't. Language change is kind of hard to predict. Okay, did that answer the question?
Yeah, and another question at the bottom of page 27, that it says
Good.
in English speaking words are bidialectical, and they speak in one way at home while being able to speak in a formal way when required to do so.
Right.
And I think this doesn't only occur in English. Maybe many language speakers, they will do like bilateral.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. That's all I can say. Yes, you're right. Most of us have different ways. Remember when we had that lesson about phonemes and allophones? We have different ways of speaking to everybody. We have one way of speaking with our friends, another way when it's a very formal situation, another way of speaking with our family members, maybe different with our parents than from our siblings. So we all have different styles. So that's quite normal. Code switching. We're always code switching, depending on the situation. Anything else? John?
I just found that okay. It's in this book. It doesn't mention you as a distinct vowel,
Or
and so
diphthong.
yeah. So what should we realize you as? Should we still recognize it as a diphthong, or it has a special status among the vowels?
Excuse me, I would just call it a rising diphthong, that's all. It's a diphthong. Because it's got that very special distribution, and it doesn't work with other combinations. So y and u go together as a unit, definitely a diphthong, in my opinion. And then historically, by spelling, you can see cut, cute. Goes to u, that's a whole chunk there. Okay, anything else?
About table 3.2, they add a long symbol. A long symbol for e and r and o, and the table.
Can I just look at it here?
They add this after those IPA vowels.
I see.
So what?
That's because it was probably the year that he made the change in this book as well, when he started writing E with a length mark and then I with no length mark. He did that for one edition. I forget which edition, maybe 2 editions ago. He just changed the whole book. Not the whole book, it was inconsistent. He forgot parts. It was really kind of a mess that year, I thought. So we never really changed. But for 1 year, he decided that after the so-called longer vowels, he would put a length mark. And then he realized it's allophonic, or it's just something that naturally happens. It's part of the vowel, so you don't need to represent it separately. U has a different quality, it has a different height and a different length. 不需要特别去标它的 length. Yeah, so I would just say ignore it. That's an older edition. I bet in the new edition they got rid of that. I'm guessing. I haven't seen the new edition. Okay? That's all. Anybody else? Hand in your work. Good. For Monday. Put it in your notes. It's an assignment. It was an assignment before, and some of you maybe missed it. So web page number 4 under phonetics 2. Read it carefully and follow the links. Sometimes you can skip the links, but this time you need the links because we have samples of the sounds that we've been learning in chapter 6. Okay? Have questions ready for Monday. Web page 4 of phonetics 2. Follow the links, listen to the sound files, bring your questions to class on Monday, okay? And are there any questions on the latest 是的 article on m, n, and ng? Any questions on that? I think that's pretty simple because we went over a lot of the things in the article in class many times. Except somebody used different example words in the table. I don't know why they did that, but anyway. So no questions on the 是的 article? Then we've covered all that. In class once, I think I said nostric. I have seen that name used for it, but it is nostratic now. This idea that all languages go back to the same original language. I have seen people call it nostric. I don't remember what I said in class, but I guess nostratic is now standard. So if I said something else, it's nostratic. A lot of you put it in your notes. I just wanted to make sure that that was correct and clear. So some people have the idea that all human languages have the same origin. They were originally the same language. That's the nostratic hypothesis. And that is it, unless anybody has questions. We're going to do our dictation. Everybody get your paper ready, pen, correction tape if you like. Name in the upper right-hand corner. We're going to use actual words from a language this time. And the language is Khmer. Khmer is the national language of what country? Khmer. Pick a continent first. Asia. Asia, good. Part of Asia. Well, you're not so far off, actually. Well, no, it's not South Asian. It's Southeast Asian. Southeast Asian. India, Pakistan, that's called South Asia. This is Southeast Asian. It's a place tourists love to go, tourists from Taiwan. Ugeku 听过吧? Where is that? Cambodia,柬埔寨. And their national language is Khmer. It's not a tone language. And today the 重点 is on what kind of sound? Implosives. So I'll tell you right away there are no ejectives. I can tell you that. So don't guess ejectives. If you hear a weird sound, and just 随便乱写一个 ejective, 不要. There are no ejectives. But the other sounds may appear. Okay, everybody ready? You're probably going to have to watch me and concentrate because these are somewhat unusual sounds. Everybody ready? 10 items again. Number 1, pa, pa. I will give you the vowels because I'm not testing you on vowels today. And that will just simplify things. Some other day I'll test you on vowels, not today. So I'll just write it over here. Okay, that should make your job easier because the focus is going to be on the initial consonants, not on the vowels. Those are the vowels that we need. These are real words. I don't have meanings for all of them, but they're all real words. And my pronunciation is not perfect, but it's good enough for a dictation like this. So once again, number 1, pa, pa. Ready? Number 2, ban, ban. Number 2 again, ban. Number 3, ta, ta. Three again, ta. Number 4, ready? Okay, pa, pa. Ready? Number 4, pa. Number 5, dap, 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 dap. Number 5 again, dap. Number 6, dam, dam. You got the vowels up there. Use the vowels on the board. Ready? Number 6 again, dam, dam. Number 7, pu, pu. Seven again, pu. Number 8, tum, tum. Number 8 again, tum, tum. Number 9, bat, bat. Number 9 again, bat. Number 10, tuk, tuk. Going to read through all of them again. Everybody ready? 1, pa, pa. 2, ban, ban. 3, ta, ta. 4, pa, pa. 5, dap, dap. 6, dam, dam, dam. 7, pu, pu. 8, tum, tum. 9, bat, bat. 10, tuk, tuk. Okay? Check over your work. Don't leave any blanks. No blanks. Guessing is always better than nothing. Very quickly, put the answers on the board. Let's start over here this time. And 完整的一个答案 with brackets. First one, correct? Pa, 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 not paw. Pa, 比较前面的啊. Second one, can you say it? Ban, ban. Third, ta. We've gotten these down now. 现在比较不会受骗，对不对？ The and the. And 4, pa, pa. 5, we're missing something here. Final what? Dap. Watch my mouth, listen. Dap. Dap. Is there voicing? No. Then why did you say B? Yeah. 没有 voicing 就是 P 啊。 is not the best pen. Okay. Đạp. Đạp. Everyone? There, good. 6. Đầm. More A. 安全的 A. Okay, đầm. 7. Bù. Yeah. 8. Thum. Thum. And 9. Something's missing there. I think that some of you assumed that they were only going to be CV, but some had a consonant at the end. What's the last consonant? It's a T. Yeah. But. Everyone? But. And then 10? Tuk. 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 If there were no K, I would have said tu, tuk, tu, tuk, tu, tuk, tuk. Howdai, you could have put a hosei in there, at least, because it's been cut off by something, even if you didn't get the K. And it's certainly not a P. We know it's not a P, because you can see a P. Tup, tup, sorry, tup, toot, toot, that's a T. And tuk, sorry? A glottal stop is pretty good. A glottal stop is pretty good. It's a K. But a glottal stop is pretty good, really. Tu. Okay, see if you can hear a difference between a glottal stop and a K. Everyone, here's glottal stop. Listen. Tu. Tu. Just listen. Don't copy now. Listen. Tu. 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 All right? With a K. Tu. 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 Can you hear something of a difference? It's difficult. I know it's very difficult. Sometimes I may be a little inconsistent with my vowel. That's true. That's my fault. Tu. Tu. There will be a little difference in the vowel even if I'm consistent though, because the final consonant will change the vowel a bit. Okay? Questions? Anything? Do you want to hear the whole thing one more time? All right. Pa. Ban. Ta. Pa. Đập. Đầm. Bù. Thum. Bạt. Tuk. Tuk. Okay? 有没有不甘心的？有 Annie?
I thought it's just a consonant and a vowel.
That's right, and that goes to show you never assume anything. That's true of the world in general. People will often, actually, 就是这样子很容易受骗。人家会给你带一个 pattern, and then suddenly they break the pattern and you're not expecting it. It's something like bait and switch. 什么挂羊头卖狗肉，常会这样子。Right.
So I have unreleased P and unreleased T in 5 and 9. Is that okay?
Unreleased? Absolutely, yes. Yes, they were unreleased. That's good. Unreleased is fine. Anything else?
So we have to look at your mouth when you say numbers to distinguish whether it's a K or P.
Tu. I think you can do it with your ears. I don't know because 我不是受试者. I'm the one giving the test. If I were taking the test, I might make the same mistake. I can't tell you. I can record it and then try it on myself. I'm not sure. I think there's a difference in quality. It was difficult. You're right. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Shh. Okay. For which one? 10? Tuk. If it were g, it would be tung, tuk, tung, tuk, tung. Yeah. That's one of the things that we're training, is paying attention to things like aspiration, voicing, glottal stops, all kinds of things like that. So that wasn't really the 重点 of this test, but all of it is good training. Because next time, 你一定不会受骗。应该不会。Anybody else?
So can I ask in number 2, what's the difference of have an N in the final and only a nasalized vowel.
Oh, well, for one thing, you can probably see it, but let's do an N and then a nasalized vowel. All right, ban, ba, ba. I'm sorry, 声音会破，你又感冒了。ba, ba, ba, ban, ba. 差蛮多. That one's pretty clear. So ban, ban, ba, ba. 那个很明显. That's much easier than K and glottal stop. Anything else? Yeah.
I still don't understand the difference between the first vowel and the fifth.
These two? Okay, let's just go over it again. And that's useful. Because you have it in Mandarin, it will be very easy for you. Ah is this one. 这个是肮脏的肮，把呢去掉，剩下来就是啊，对不对？丫头的丫那个啊。All right, 这个是安全的安，把 n 切掉。安国语 is really helpful this time. Sometimes Mandarin doesn't help us, but this time it really helps. It's probably easier for you than an American, unless they know a Southern accent, like I like it. Then we can get that vowel from a Southern accent. Okay? That helped? Anybody else? And that's also in the Shida article on nasals, the first one. The second one, 还没有登，可是已经写好了. I'll probably put it up one of these days. So if you have questions about nasals and the vowels, a lot of that's in that piece. Anybody else? Hayoma. Okay, hand in your work, please. So you probably avoided making some mistakes that you made last time, like the duh and the duh problem. That's probably solved now mostly. But you probably have some new problems that came up. So every time you have a new problem that comes up, remember, it's a gift. It's not a bad grade. It's a gift. Because unless you have a mistake, you make a mistake, you may never ever find out about it. Just remember that mistakes are gifts, especially when somebody points them out. And that's it for today, except for the course. The rest of the time we're going to work on... No, we're not going home. We're not going home. But I mean, that's it for all the Zachi Zabada stuff. The rest is the course. And we should be finishing this chapter either today or Monday. So we're going to be moving faster this semester than last semester. Last semester, we really had a slow start. And I remember it's Jerome's turn, and we're on page 151. And we have the last two sentences of the third paragraph. Right? Yep. Go ahead, Jerome.
To produce this stop, the vocal folds are parts during the whole of the
Yeah.
during the whole of the closure period, but close together at the moment of release of the closure.
All right. A lot of you are doing that and still haven't fixed it. It's not release. It's release. It's really short because of the S. And for some reason in Taiwan, it gets long. And it's the one long vowel that's not supposed to be long. Usually your vowels are too short, but this one, 该短就不短, okay? So, release, release, lease, lease. Don't make it long. It's E, it's not I, but it has to be short. So, at the moment of the release of the closure.
At the moment of release of the closure, so that voicing starts as soon as there is sufficient airflow through the glottis.
Okay, you put stress on the right words, but you put tonic stress on all the words. And we shouldn't put tonic stress on all the words because it's a whole system. That means certain words should be stressed. That shows that they are either content words or there's a contrastive relation with another word. So they get normal stress. Tonic stress gives us a different piece of information. Not only is it a content word, but it's at the end of an utterance, of some kind of utterance. At the end of a phrase or the end of a compound. It's at the end of something. So when we hear a tonic, that means we're getting ready for a continuation rise and something else is going to happen, or else it's the end of the sentence. Did everybody follow me? Tonics are really important. They're much higher than the other stresses. So we've got unstressed syllables, stressed syllables, and then tonic stress. Unstressed is 低平调. Stressed is higher pitch, longer, etc. Tonic is much higher. It goes much higher. And if you make all of the stresses into a tonic stress, it sounds like you're really excited, and we wonder, what is the big deal? That's how it sounds. We have to leave space for the tonic. 要留个空间. So if you make all of them high, then your tonic has to go up here, and you're a guy. 你的声音不会那么高，会破掉. Okay? 即使是女生，声音的那个高度也有限. So let's try this again. Listen carefully. Note the relative pitch of my voice on the ordinary stresses compared to the pitch of my voice on the tonic stresses. Everybody understand what to watch out for? 可以吗? To produce this stop, the vocal folds are apart during the whole of the closure period, but close together, that's 小 tonic, 我叫它小 tonic, at the moment of release of the closure, so that voicing starts as soon as there is sufficient airflow. soon 蛮高的，可是不能 voicing 不能那么高。So that voicing starts as soon as there is sufficient air. There we go. That one's really high. That's the real tonic there in this phrase. Airflow through the glottis. Airflow 是那个 utterance, 那个 phrase 的 tonic, because the glottis 是整句话的 tonic, 它是最后一个。So listen to me read it again and pay attention to the relative height of the pitches. To produce this stop 其实已经提过了. It's the stop in da, right? We skipped that because we did it last time. So in the next waveform da, let's just look at the waveform to remind us what we're looking at. Next page, look at da. It's the second one in Cindy, TA. Okay? That's the one where we have just a tiny, tiny bit of aspiration at the beginning. It's less than 20 milliseconds, so we can, what it? We can, do we have to pay attention to it? No, under 20 milliseconds, 我们就不理它了, we ignore it. So that little bit of aspiration, it's under 20 milliseconds, we ignore it. So we consider this as 0 VOT. So again, to produce this stop, 因为 stop 提过, to produce this stop, the vocal folds are apart, 小 tonic, 因为 during 是个介系词, during the whole of the closure period, closure 是这个 phrase 的 tonic, but close together, 另外一个小 tonic, at the moment of release of the closure. Or you can say at the moment of release of the closure. 如果 closure 讲过，你可以不要放重音. At the moment of release of the closure, so that voicing starts as soon as there is sufficient airflow through the glottis. So, 有一点微妙, but on the other hand, if you know how the system works, it happens naturally, or with just a little bit of forethought. Can you try that again?
To produce this stop, the vocal folds are apart during the whole of the closure period, but close together at the moment of release of the closure.
Together 后面的字
At the
at,
moment.
yeah. You have a little 色差音, but that's also British, so I'm just being picky. At the moment is possible. In British, there tends to be more ats for at. If you listen to Prince Harry, 结了婚的是 William, yeah, listen to Prince William. He has it. Somebody pointed out in a discussion list. 很多那个词尾的 t, 他会念次, like at, he will say ats. Not ats really clearly, but at. 有一点点那个 affrication. So that can be British. I'll let that by. At the moment of release of the closure.
At the moment of release of the closure.
Everything else was fine, yeah.
So that voicing starts as soon as there
Voicing
is.
不用那么高.
So that voicing starts as soon as there.
Yeah.
As soon as there is sufficient airflow through the glottis.
Beautiful, you got it. That's it. That's the system. That's how it works. So if you get a model and you get the rules, you can do it. You applied it. It sounds great. So the vocal folds are apart during the whole of the closure period. Remember, approach, hold, release. So during the hold period, and then the voicing can start as soon as you have enough air to produce the vowel. Let's go on.
In the middle of the closure, the vocal folds might be...
Middle is still too high. You're still making too many tonics. In the middle of the closure.
In the middle of the closure,
Good.
the vocal folds might be in a position similar to that shown in the top right photograph.
Shown, pause.
Shown in the top right photograph in figure 6.6.
Let's look for 6.6. Okay, it's the one we've looked at so many times. Top right photograph. So that's voiceless. This is a voiceless stop. And it's confusing because, like we said before, for native speakers, they would certainly write D if they hear da, da. They would certainly write D because our initial the sound is usually not voiced in English at the beginning of an utterance. Okay, that's good. Next.
The third waveform.
The third waveform.
The third waveform. Oh,
Because we repeated waveform. And
The
third
third-
is in contrast with what?
second.
Next.
Next.
Right.
The third waveform.
Right.
Ta shows an aspirated stop with a VOT of about 50 milliseconds. In producing this sound, the vocal folds are apart during the stop closure, and the glottis is still open at the moment of the release of the stop closure.
Okay, your stresses and tonic stresses were beautiful. They were excellent. Just two tiny things. We usually say during instead of during. During is not wrong, but we usually say during. Everyone, during. In American, during. And the other thing is you can link more. For example, are apart. Instead of saying are apart is perfectly correct. There's nothing wrong with it. But native speakers will usually link are apart. During. Good. The pitches of your stresses and your tonic stress, they were perfect. They're absolutely perfect. Okay, so we've got ta now, and the VOT is about how long? 50. Don't make sure it doesn't sound like 15. Make it really clear. 50. 50. Yeah. Okay, because I heard 15 when it was supposed to be 50. So 20 milliseconds 以下 does not matter, but how about 50 milliseconds? You think milliseconds 毫秒那么小，只差个30毫秒，有什么了不起吗？ Yes, 有什么了不起？ So if it's about 50 milliseconds, that's enough for aspiration, and that makes it a what kind of stop? An aspirated voiceless stop. And then I said, 对，有什么了不起? And that reminds me of something I heard on UFO this morning on the radio. I want you to tell me if this is a grammatical sentence in Chinese. 我不可能去会那么多东西。你会不会，比方说你会不会写程式啊？你会不会这个？会不会那个？ And then the speaker said, 我不可能去会那么多东西。Is that grammatical? No, but in this case? And he used it humorously. 它是幽默，对不对？它是好玩。Because they say, for example, 他们说年轻人虽然会用电脑，可是其实他对电脑并不太了解，很多东西他不会，他也不会说网上放个履历表传给他那个未来的老板，他不会，然后他也不会什么，他列了一大堆电脑的东西，这些年轻人不会。And so 唐湘龙他自己不是那么爱电脑，他说，我哪有那么多时间去会那么多东西？ All right, now does it sound normal? It sounds perfectly fine, a little humorous, right? He's bending the use of the word 会 for a humorous effect, 就好玩. So I wrote it down quickly, 刚好是个红灯，那我就写下来了. There's actually one other thing I heard on the radio. I'd have to check. What was it? There's one other thing. You get a lot of good 语料 from the radio. If you can find a good radio program, 因为他们两个是口才非常好的. Oh, the other one was 会不会的会。
有时候我们有说，我跟我们说你不要我去，你不可能要我会那么多东西。
That's right. but I wrote down verbatim what he said. He said, 我没有时间去会那么多东西. That's what he said. 好玩. You guys are all hesitating. But if you listen to Tang Xianglong in the morning, 他口才非常非常好. His Chinese is really good. If you want to hear a good model of someone who speaks really good educated Mandarin, Tang Xianglong in the morning, 飞碟电台. So I really like listening to him in the morning. The other one was actually more about morphology. And we know about 工业化, right? But he invented a word, 词, 去工业化. 像去冰那个去工业化. So what would the English be, do you think? De-industrialize. Everybody got it right away. But you probably never heard that word before. 去工业化. Sorry? 听过吗? I've heard a similar one from Lai Zixiong once. He said 除森林化, 除掉, deforestation. He said 除了之外, 除去的除, yeah, 除森林化. So I'm just telling you interesting things from the radio. The other one was when we were recording, not when I was listening. But anyway, 我哪有时间去会那么多东西? I thought that was interesting. That's why I thought I'd mention it. We're going to just go over this to make sure we understood it. So the third waveform, ta, shows an aspirated stop, VOT of about 50 milliseconds. In producing the sound, the vocal folds are apart during the stop closure. 就是 hold 的那个阶段，跟前面那个一样，声带是敞开的，是分开的。And the glottis is still open when you release the stop. So that's the difference between those two stops. For da, when do the vocal folds come together for da? Da, when do the vocal folds come together? They're open for the hold phase. When you're just holding the stop, you've got your tongue tip on your alveolar ridge. My vocal folds are, you have to look at what I'm doing. I'm not making any sound. I'm going to make da, but I'm slowing it down. So now my vocal folds are open or closed? They're open. And then they're open for a tiny bit after the release, that 20 milliseconds. Remember that little bit of noise we have there? But we can count it as 0. So da. When do the vocal folds come together in that case? At about the time of the release. At about the time of the release. 可能会有一点点的差距，一点点. But for ta, when I'm in the hold phase of the stop, the vocal folds are open, and now I've released the stop. My vocal folds are still open, and they don't come together until we make the vowel after that period of aspiration. That's all they're saying. I think you know that already, but we want to make it really clear and explicit here, and let's take our break. I just want to ask you a quick question before we continue, 有点题外话, but not totally 题外. And that is, a lot of you are getting really, really good. Like, if you listen, Jerome started out being already really good. But when we did a little 微调, then it was nearly perfect. He got the regular stresses and the tonics and everything perfect. There's 没有瑕疵. So you guys are getting a high level of skills, a lot of you. You know, most of you should be able to. How are you going to teach that to other people? That's what I'm wondering, because a lot of you will now have skills that many of your classmates don't, right? And then in the future, some of you are going to be English teachers. So you can teach by example. Just hope that they pick it up. If you teach them to have good listening skills, they'll listen and they should be able to pick it up. And if they're really paying attention, they'll ask you why you do this or why you do that. But I'm just curious, how will you teach this in the future, assuming you're going to teach it? Anybody have any thoughts on this? Can you write it down as a question? You yourself, how would you teach it? How do you plan to teach it if you're going to be a teacher? And then a third question is, how can we introduce it to the 大众 of Taiwan? Because they really should have this information too, don't you think? Because not having the information holds you back. You're making mistakes that you're totally unaware of. Some of them are not mistakes, they're just sort of 修饰, they're just refinements. But they're not that difficult because If you are given a good model and you're paying attention, you can reproduce it perfectly. As long as you have a normal brain and normal ears, and all the students we get have normal brains and normal ears. So if you are paying attention, you can do it. But the thing is, people are mostly not paying attention. They're shutting out sound. They're just using 他们习惯的那个发音。他听到不管是什么样的发音，多好多差，多台湾多道地 ，doesn't matter。他们讲出来的时候还是那个台湾腔了。But if they were taught how to listen, how to imitate, I think just about everybody could reproduce it perfectly. Everybody has the bunning. Everybody has the ability. The thing is that they are not being asked to pay attention and reproduce something carefully. They could if they were trained, but they're not getting the training, most of them. The teachers are not aware of it in most cases, and they're not demanding it of the students. And then a lot of people have the attitude, 听得懂就好了. So my question, number 3 of these 3 questions. The first one is, how would you teach it? You know, how do you plan to teach it if you're going to be a teacher? And 3 is, how do we get this information to the 大众 of Taiwan? Can you think of a way that somehow we can get this information to most people who need it? Like people who teach English in Taiwan mostly don't have this information. The teachers don't have it. And just 一般的学过英文的民众是没有这个资讯. If they had it, 没有什么大不了. It's not that hard once you know it. The only problem is that the information is missing. 它就是没有这个资讯，并不是说因为它是很难很深奥的东西，它不是 right? Once you hear about it, is it really, really complicated or weird? Is it that hard? 会吗? Vivian's thinking. 会很复杂吗？很难? That's right. That's the problem. The problem is it's different from what you learn, and we're going against habit. The thing is, it goes back to habit. But is the theory hard to understand? I say it's done like ABC. This is how we do it. Is that difficult? No. The hard part is changing it in your own speech because we're going against habit. So the issue is not that the knowledge itself is difficult or complicated. It is not. It really is not. It just happens to be missing. And then we have a bunch of habits there by default that are very hard to change because all habits are hard to change, practically. Most habits are hard to change. So my question for you is, how do we get this information out to the masses of Taiwan, the people of Taiwan? It's not hard. And it would really improve their quality of English and possibly their quality of life. You know, if you speak better English, you can probably get a better job, actually. That's not an exaggeration. How, in theory, how can we get the information out there? There are all kinds of, 比方说英语教学的广播节目, you know, like the one that I work for, or the other ones. People who want to will listen to them. That reaches a certain group of people, but they often don't really emphasize these things either, right? You just follow along in your magazine, and then you do mostly the same stuff you do at school. So how do we get that information out? That's my question, okay? Put it in your notes for Monday. How about that? 星期一的笔记里面, I want you to think about it. This is not for me, all right? Not for me. This is for you to think about, and then for the people of Taiwan, basically, all right? Because you may be able to make a contribution if you come up with something good. Okay? Let's continue. And Annie, you had a really short one. Do you want to take a little part of the next paragraph, which is really long? How about if you read up to through the closure? Read the first 5 lines.
There is a continuum of possible voice onset times.
Okay, how do we stress that, everybody? Listen. Voice onset times. Voice onset times. Remember our rule is if we have a whole bunch of words and they look like they're going to be a compound, first of all, we find just 2 words. Which 2 words? The 2 with the closest relationship. 关系最密切的2个先找出来, and then we apply the rules. Onset is a 什么词类? 什么词类? Noun. Times is a, therefore we say, 那个一旦解决了，你就不要再动它了. And then voice is going to be stressed no matter what. 最左边的绝对是有重音，无论如何，左边的那个是有重音，那个是没有任何好怀疑的. So we say voice onset times. Onset time 先处理好了 voice 一定会有重音. And onset gets a tonic stress. That's why it's higher. So voice onset times. Go ahead.
Some languages,
Very good.
such as Hindi, have very fully voiced stops.
Voiced.
Stops,
with a large negative VOT. Others, such as English, have little or no voicing during the closure, unless the stop
不是 unless
unless the stop is preceded
right.
by a sound in which the vocal folds are already vibrating.
Okay, 不是 already.
Already.
Good. That's very good. And one other thing I noticed, what was it? Was it which? 是吗? I'm trying to remember what it was. We fixed that. Preceded. In which? No, there was something else. Little. It was little. Little is not wrong, but it sounds a little bit like a child's pronunciation because we usually use a tap. Everyone? Little. No. Have little or no voicing.
Have little or no voicing.
Voicing. Yeah, you can make it even shorter. Voicing. Just Annie? Okay, now it's pretty good. You can make it even a tiny bit shorter and then it'll be just right. Let's try that, everybody. Have little or no voicing. Have little or no voicing. And remember this phrase, little or no. Just remember it as a chunk, little or no, because we use it a lot. 很少,很少,可能也没有,根本就没有,或者只有很少. Little or no, we use that a lot. Okay? So, remember that VOT is a continuum. We can have a very, very long negative VOT. We can have a less long negative VOT. We can have zero. We can have just a tiny bit of aspiration. We can have a lot of aspiration. So like so many things in the world, not just linguistics and phonetics, we have a continuum. It does not necessarily fall in set places on that line, the things that we're looking for. Okay? So in Sindhi, it has very fully voiced stops. So instead of saying, for example, boy, like we do in English, if it were Sindhi, they wouldn't say boy, they would say boy. Right, it's very fully voiced, large negative VOT. English has little or no voicing during the closure, so we have boy, little or no. That's zero. Unless it's preceded by a sound, which is voiced, for example, a boy. In that case, we do pronounce b with voicing, a boy. We're voicing it now. Just boy? No, but a boy, yes. Okay, next.
In which case the vibration may continue through the closure.
Right, a boy. The vibration went all the way through, didn't stop. Okay, now, next.
Similarly, languages vary in the VOT they use for aspirated stops.
For aspirated stops.
For aspirated stops.
Right.
In the Sindhi example, in the third row in figure 6.7, it is only 50 milliseconds. In Navajo, as shown...
Navajo. I say Navajo.
Navajo.
I guess Navajo is fine, but I say Navajo.
In Navajo, as shown in the last row in figure 6.7... Figure. Figure 6.7...
I hear figure. Figure. Yeah.
Figure 6.7, aspirated stops have a VOT of about 150 milliseconds.
All right, compare those two. So in Sindhi, they do have aspirated voiceless stops. And how long is the VOT? Plus, in Sindhi? Amy just read it, 50 milliseconds. But in Navajo, it's 100, and we don't say and usually, 150 就好了, 那个 and 去掉, we just don't usually say it. 150, is that a big difference? It's a difference of how much? 300%, okay. So, yeah, that's a huge difference. In both of them, we call them unaspirated voiceless stops. They have the same name. So obviously, when we're transcribing, we have to define what we're doing. We have to say, aspirated stops in this language means a VOT of about 150. We have to say that. Otherwise, we will have no idea how to make them correctly. We'll think that it's just like Sindhi and it'll be way too short. Okay?
When producing a strongly aspirated stop, such as this, the maximum opening of the vocal folds will be much larger than that shown in the top right photograph in figure 6.6. The maximum opening will occur at about the moment of release of the stop closure.
Of the stop closure. And stop closure is okay if you want to emphasize closure. Closure 很重要的时候, they do it on the radio all the time. So, at the release of the stop closure, 特别强调, but according to the rule, it should be stop closure. All right? So that's the rule. Sometimes you hear people breaking the rule. It's to emphasize in most cases. Otherwise, they don't know the rule. Now, why would that be? The maximum opening occurs at the moment, at about the moment of release of the stop closure. Why? So we have ta for Cindy, but we have ta for Navajo. When it's so strongly when it's so strongly aspirated, why will the maximum opening occur at about the moment of release? You can figure it out. Okay, you don't have to go through the book. Just imagine it in your head, what's going on in your vocal tract. So for Cindy, ta. But for Navajo, ta, ta. And right about the moment that I'm releasing that t, that's when my vocal folds are open the widest. Why would that be? That's right, you're going to push out a lot of air. So it's opening wide and the air is going to push them even wider. So right about when you're letting it go, that air is going to be pushing it wide open. Let's go on.
In general, the degree of aspiration, the amount of lag, the amount of lag in the voice onset time will depend on the degree of glottal aperture during the closure. The greater the opening of the vocal folds during a stop, the longer the amount of the voice, the following aspiration.
And that is very 合理. So most things you don't have to 死背 if you understand what's happening. If you've got a lot of air that's going to be blasted out really strongly, of course it's going to be open wider. If you have a very long period of aspiration, you're going to have a lot of air that you're pushing out, and that will push them open wide. Go on.
Different languages choose
First word.
different. Different languages.
You're still doing it.
Different.
Anybody?
Different.
Listen. All right, I'll make a contrast. Different languages.
Stop and stop.
Yes.
Different languages.
That's better. It makes a huge difference. My ears think, yes, friendly, I like that. When different languages, I go, oh no, it's Taiwan English again. Honestly, that's what's going on in my system 1. 那个 reaction 是立即的. So different languages, 又是那种 sloppy 的 Taiwan English, that's my feeling. But different languages 很舒服. Go ahead.
Different languages choose different points along the VOT continuum in forming oppositions among stop consonants.
Stop consonants.
Stop consonants.
Okay, 这两个都是同一个问题，那个要长一点.
Stop consonants.
Right.
This point is illustrated in Figure 6.8, in which some of the possibilities that occur in different languages in different languages.
Can you make it clearer?
In
Same problem again. The problem is not in
different languages.
No, that's right.
Are shown.
Everyone, watch. 2 problems. It's not 不是圆唇，没有那么圆，有一点唇化，不是那么圆。然后是欧洲的欧 shown. Good, not shown. Shown. Yeah.
Are shown.
Good.
With reference to a scale going from most aspirated, largest positive VOT at the top to to most voiced, largest negative VOT. To most voiced, largest negative VOT at the bottom.
At
the bottom.
Right.
The Navajo aspirated stops shown in the first column.
In the first column. Right.
Have a very large VOT that is quite exceptional. Quite.
Yeah, not quite.
Quite exceptional.
Being picky.
Navajo does not have a bilabial stop.
Does not have, not 是比较重, not treat it like a very important 实词. It looks like a 虚词, but it's very important because it changes the meaning exactly opposite to what it was. Okay?
Navajo does not have a bilabial stop series, but for all the other languages,
for all the
other languages,
that's better.
the positions shown on the scale correspond to bilabial stops.
Bilabial stops.
Bilabial
It's
stops.
not a compound.
Bilabial stops. As you can see, also in the first column,
Also, good.
in the first column, a normal value for the VOT of English stressed initial P would be between 50 and 60 milliseconds. English initial B at the bottom of bottom of the first column may have a VOT of about 10 milliseconds. 10
Right.
milliseconds. But as indicated by the dashed line, it may be less.
Dashed line.
It may be less and even slightly negative.
Slightly. That's good.
Slightly negative. After an initial English P will have a VOT, much like English initial B.
And we've had that already. We had it last semester. Your phrasing is excellent. 你的断句非常好. It's really good. What are 2 things that you can improve? Stop it stops is the big one, and also make it longer. But your phrasing is very good. So we understood everything here. We're talking now about figure 6.8, where we have a comparison between a number of languages. So here we have minus 100 milliseconds for French B, and Thai B is like French pretty much, B. Quite strongly voiced. We could compare ba and ba. In fact, ba is not a very good B. Ba, or bread, is slightly aspirated, not that much. Ba is 洗澡, and then ba is bread. So this one is strongly voiced. This one almost sounds like B in English, but not quite. 它还是有一点点 aspiration. So it's not ba with just the B. So ba, 有一点点的 aspiration. But anyway, the B is strongly voiced, as in Thai. Then English P after initial S, like in spy. Or an initial B, like in boy. Boy, it's hot today. French P, like in ba, has a little more aspiration, I believe, than the English B in boy. And Gaelic, the native language of Ireland, has a B about in the same place as English initial B or French P. And then Thai P has a little bit more what? Say it. Aspiration, a little bit more. So it sounds even less like ba. It's got a little more aspiration. Then we get to a Navajo G, which we would expect to be voiced. But they use this symbol even though it's over 40 milliseconds, positive VOT. And we have something that contrasts it, which has a much longer period of what? A much longer period of aspiration. So we write G in Navajo, but it already sounds like what in English? K in English. It will sound very much like K in English. And it's just a slightly shorter period of aspiration than we have for P, like in pie. So they have probably something like kai. Instead of kai, pie in English, it would be something like kai. Tiny bit of aspiration. I don't know Navajo, I'm just saying according to this table what we could expect. And then how about the Gaelic and the Thai P's, aspirated P's? Are they more or less aspirated than English? More aspirated. Okay, and then why do you think they'd be more aspirated than English? Especially in the case of Thai.
To make a contrast clear.
Right, because it's a how many way contrast? A 3-way contrast in Thai, B and P. We've got that 3-way contrast. So in that case, we usually need more aspiration for more contrast. And in Mandarin, ban and pan, we've got more aspiration as well. You need a good contrast because both are voiceless. So you need a good contrast. And finally, 最夸张 the aspiration is in Navajo. So something like ha, probably, has a really long period of aspiration. But anything is possible. This is only a few sample languages. if we looked at a lot of other different languages, we'd probably find all kinds of things in between. Let's continue.
Other languages make the contrast between phonemes such as p, t, k, and b, d, g in initial position.
In initial.
In initial
Can you
position.
link it? In initial.
In initial.
连音试试看 initial. In initial. That's it. The other thing is other. 吐舌头 other. Right. That's it. In initial.
In initial
Right.
position with very different VOTs. A Navajo contrasts Navajo contrasts initial k with a g that is far from voiced. It has a VOT of over 40 milliseconds.
40.
40.
Not 40. 40. It's an E. Remember final Y in spelling in English? 是有点的 E, 不是 I. That's a problem with KK. 40, not 40. 40. Yep.
As this sound is completely voiceless, it might be better to say that the contrast in Navajo is between k and k, rather than between k and g. However, However,
yeah, watch, don't say however.
However, both ways of transcribing Navajo are perfectly valid.
Are perfectly valid.
Are perfectly valid.
That was good.
As we saw in Chapter 2, you can make a broad transcription that shows the phonemic contrast in
Phonemic? Right, not phonemic, it's phonemic.
Phonemic contrast in a language using the simplest possible symbols, or you can make a narrow transcription that shows the phonetic detail. As long as the broad transcription is accompanied by a statement that specifies how it should be
That a statement that
specifies
specifies
how it should be interpreted.
Stops.
How it should be interpreted, it is equally accurate.
Accurate.
Why
is it it? Adjective, noun. 讲过多少遍？好多遍, right? That's the way it is with habit. So, 形容词, 名词 ate, it. 动词 ate. Remember that. And also, can you try to link a bit more? It is equally accurate. It is. 前一行，倒数第二行。It is equally. 两个连音。
It is equally.
It is equally.
It is equally. It is equally.
Equally. It is equally.
It is equally.
It sounds weird when you say it that way, but in context, it sounds really normal. It is equally. It is equally. It is equally. Okay? Good.
The choice of symbol depends in the part on the reason for making the transcription.
Right.
In broad transcriptions of English, it is sufficient just to use b, p. But if one wants to show more phonetic...
But if one wants to...
But if one wants to...
One不要那么重. But if one wants to...
But if one...
If.
But if one wants
There we go.
But if one wants to show more phonetic detail, one can specify that the phonemes b is a completely voiceless.
Right? Good.
But in, for instance, that boy. For instance,
right.
That boy. Similarly, one might want to show phonetic detail. Might. Oh.
Yeah. Everybody pay attention because just about, I wouldn't say everybody, but lots of people have stop-it-stops problems. So if other people are being corrected, use that to sort of help you work on your habit, changing it. If, let's see, what was it? One might want to. One might want to. That's good practice. One might want to. And watch the N and one. Don't say one, right? One might want to. And don't make might too long. It's might, because it's voiceless at the end. One might want to. Good. And don't say want either. Want, on. I'm trying to on. Once more. One might want to. good. Yeah.
Similarly, one might want to show phonetic details such as the aspirate P that occurs in pi.
That occurs.
That occurs.
Right.
That occurs in pi, or the word, or the unaspirated P.
Unaspirated for contrast.
Okay. Unaspirated. Or the unaspirated P.
Not you're doing, that's a Chinese 连音的方式. For example, how do you say good evening in Chinese? Good night or good evening? 晚安. A lot of people say 晚安. 晚安有个晚安. 因为的关系. But in English, you have to watch that. It has to stay, has to stay alveolar. So, similar to what started that. Try it again.
Or the unaspirated.
That was the problem. Unaspirated, not You're saying 不是舌后是舌尖. Unaspirated.
Unaspirated.
Okay, 连音 unaspirated.
Unaspirated.
Now you got it. Yep.
Or the unaspirated P in spy. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, that's it. Everybody understands? The point is that we make choices in both orthography when we're designing a spelling system for a language that didn't have writing before, and also for IPA symbols when we're transcribing an IPA. You make choices, and maybe this symbol represents something in one language and something quite different in another, so you just have to define it clearly. You have a little 说明 at the beginning of your transcription, and this is my usual example. How do we pronounce this? The symbol in American? Cup, not cup, cup. Right, but in British it's cup. It's almost ah. It's close to ah. We use the same symbol. It's the same phoneme. It's a regional difference. But why do we use the same symbol? It's quite a different sound. Because it's systematic. 整个英式就是这个东西念啊 cup. 整个美式就是 a cup. So we use the same symbol, but it represents different things in British than it does in American. And they're saying that you can use symbols that we're used to using with new values, but what do you have to do? You can use, for example, G for Navajo when there's no voicing at all. In fact, there's aspiration. You can use it if you what? If you what? Yumi? Yeah, just put it in your description. Just put it in a little explanation before you start. Say that G in Navajo is actually slightly aspirated, not voiced at all. You can do that because it's convenient. G 跟 K 是个很方便的一个对比, but it means something totally different from English G and K. You just have to make a note of it. Let's go on.
Oh.
Questions? Yeah.
Does it mean that IPA can't really start every voice, so you still need description for?
It means that in IPA we always have choices. And every symbol in every language will be slightly different. We have this idea that we've learned the symbols and that E is always E, but in some languages E is a little more I. And some of it, in some languages it might be E. Some it's E, some it's I. But then we have something even lower, I. So we need the 有刚刚的 I for a different symbol. 刚好有个对比. So there's always a continuum. And wherever this language happens to put its sounds, you can choose a symbol that's closest to it. But it's going to be different from, say, English, or different from Mandarin, or different from Southern Ming. So that's one thing you have to know about the IPA. We have symbols that are good sort of landmarks. 它差不多这个区域的音可以用这个符号，可是每个语言可能有一点点稍微不一样。Okay? Right, good. And we have it just like I said, in such common varieties, language varieties as British and American. Cup, cup. 差蛮多. But it's okay as long as we've made it clear ahead of time. Okay? So don't be surprised. Like this G in Navajo, I think 真的是有点夸张. But it's really a convenience. You can do it as long as you define it. Okay?
The second column in figure 6.8 shows how the sounds of French line up with those of English and Navajo. The voice
the voice stops in French and Spanish, Italian, and many other languages are nearly always fully voiced. The length of the voicing varies depending depending on the length of the closure, which is why we added an arrow alongside French, but voiceless stops in these languages are unaspirated.
Try it again.
Unaspirated.
You did it. You did it. Good.
Making French similar to English initial but.
Okay, go to the preceding page and look at the French B, and we see arrows by both French and Thai, which means they can be more or less voiced depending on what does it say? Depending on the length of the closure, 看它的长度，比闭合的那个时间，你 hold 的那个时间有多长 ？It will vary. It's not absolute. Okay, let's go on.
French but is even more like Gaelic but, which is virtually never voiced, even between vowels. The Gaelic opposition between but and put is in the narrow
All right, a lot of you are doing the same thing. It's brought over from Mandarin. 就是那个从国语带过来的不知不觉的一个习惯 in 加 It's in one of the 实的 articles, I think on nasals. Excuse me, in. Don't say in because then you'll often say in a. So say just a vowel, and then 你呢的呢 in. And then it's perfect. You 不会跑到那个舌根去了. So in. Right.
In a narrow phonetic transcription.
I say narrow. Narrow is East Coast. Narrow.
Phonetic transcription. B versus p. In the Gaelic spoken in the outer Hebrides of Scotland.
Good.
The VOT of put is around 65 milliseconds, not nearly as long as that in Navajo.
Not nearly as long.
Not.
It's not.
Not.
Okay, that was the same thing as Bella. Okay, so not nearly. So don't say nut. It sounds like 坚果. Not nearly as long. Not nearly as long.
Not nearly as long as that in Navajo, but longer.
But longer. Stop. It stops.
But longer than.
Longer. Right.
Longer than that in English.
You did it. Good. Very good. Excellent. So we have a pretty long VOT, positive VOT for Gaelic, because we need to contrast it with a voiceless b.
Some languages contrast 3 different voice onset times. Thai has voiceless, unaspirated.
Do it again. Voiceless.
Voiceless, unaspirated.
Same thing again. Sylvie, can you help her? Voiceless what? Unaspirated. 舌尖音. Don't say A lot of you are just 自动的把它放到去. It's because of Chinese. Okay? Unaspirated.
Unaspirated.
Let me see. I want to see it as well as hear it. Unaspirated.
Unaspirated.
You got the right place now. Can you make it smooth? Unaspirated.
Unaspirated.
You still 你很容易念到去了.点的 unaspirated. It's good, but can you link it? Nas.
Unaspirated.
Now you got it. All right, everybody, unaspirated. It's not very natural, but it will help you learn it correctly. Naspirated. Nasper is easy to say. 因为你是 initial N 没有问題. Everybody, Nasper. Sounds like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Nasper is his brother. I don't know. Nasper. Nasper.
Nasper.
Good. But when you make it smooth, it will sound more natural. If I say naspirated, it's not natural. But that shows you how to do it. So, unaspirated.
Unaspirated.
That's it. My ears didn't tell me, oops, not again. Okay, go ahead.
Thai has voiceless unaspirated and aspirated stops as shown in the final column in figure 6.8.
Point 8. Everybody watch that. Stop it stops with an N in front of it. 6.8.
6.8.
Good.
Figure 6.8. Words illustrating this contrast in Thai are given in table 6.6. As the case in French,
As in?
as in the case,
Not
as in the
Good.
as in the case of French,
French.
the voice stops are fully voiced with the duration of the voicing, depending on the length of the stop closure.
Very good. Excellent. And everybody understood that, I'm guessing, right? I didn't interrupt a lot, just a little bit. And we've already covered it when I was showing you this figure. We already covered this material, so this should just be a review. Let's go on. Do you have any questions? Is there anything you need explained again? 有没有不清楚? Let's go on.
Many languages spoken in India,
In India, same thing again. Yeah.
such as Hindi and Sindhi,
Cindy. Good.
have not only the three possibilities that occurs in Thai, but murmured
Stop it
stop,
stops.
but murmured
But
stop,
murmured.
but murmured
Good.
stops as well.
Good.
After the release of the
Release. I say you can say release. Release.
release.
I like that better. Yeah.
After the release of the closure, there is a period of breathy voice or murmur before the regular voicing starts. Some illustrative Hindi words are given in table 6.7.
I think a lot of native speakers would probably say illustrative, but it's illustrative. Actually, illustrative sounds fine to me. That's my 直觉, because it illustrates. But illustrative sounds to me like illustrious, 好像很伟大的. Some illustrative, I think it should still be illustrative though. Okay?
The breathy voice release of these stops
Yeah.
is indicated by
Keep reading.
a raised hooky letter
A raised what?
hooked
Right.
letter at H. The Sindhi words in the last row of table 6.2 also illustrate breathy voice stops. As shown in the tables, in addition to the breathy voice stops. Both Sindhi and Hindi also contrast stops with three different voice onset time.
Excellent. That was really good. You've improved a lot. Can you feel it? Can you feel it yourself? You sounded great. Let's keep going. I think we can, we all understand this one okay? Remember in Hindi we have voiced breathy stops as well as voice stops. Besides ba, we have ba, ba. We have voiced breathy stops in Hindi and Sindhi. Let's keep going.
Figure 6.9 shows
6.9?
6.9 shows the waveforms of the Hindi dental stops in the second row of table 6.7. There is voicing during the stop closure of in the top line, but not during the stops in the second. In the stops.
Okay, that's a lot of you have this problem with the English ah or the American ah because it's written with O, and I think in school many of you learn O, but it's ah in American stops.
But not during the stops in the second and third lines. The second line has a voiceless, unaspirated t with a VOT of about 20 milliseconds.
All right, and that little symbol means it is dental, yeah.
The third line has an aspirated t with a VOT of about 100 milliseconds. In the fourth line, the has voicing during the closure followed by a waveform.
Closure, pause.
Closure followed by a waveform that has some of the appearance of voicing. A wavy line.
A wavy line.
A wavy line. But also has noise.
Also.
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 Also. Also
Good,
has
yeah.
noise superimposed on it.
Superimposed on it.
Superimposed on it.
Good.
This is breathy voicing.
Breathy.
Breathy voicing. It is difficult to say how
To
long.
say, pause.
To say how long this breathy voice aspiration lasts, as it shades
Good.
into the regular voicing for the vowel. During this breathy voicing, the vocal folds are drawn into loose vibrations and do not come fully together.
Very nice. Good. So look at the next page. Look at the bottom stop, the waveform at the bottom of the figure in 6.9. We've got da, and it's, remember it's dental, so da. We've got voicing and we've got a lot of air coming out at the same time. That's a breathy stop. Da. Okay, let's keep going.
The difference between voices and aspirated, and murmured stops, the last three rows in figure 6.9, is largely a matter of the size and timing of the opening of the vocal folds. In voices and aspirated stops, the maximum opening of the
Say it again,
glottis.
the next, the what? Say it again,
The maximum
I wasn't sure if there was an M, but there is, yeah.
opening of the glottis, which is not very great, occurs during the stop closure.
And that's repeating what we've already heard before.
In voices aspirated stops, the glottal opening is larger and
Opening.
is larger and occurs later, near the moment of release of the stop closure.
Good.
In murmured stops, the glottal opening is similar in size to that in voices and aspirated stops.
Stops.
But it occurs later during the release of the closure.
Release. Don't make it too long. Release. I don't know why it's those words like increase, decrease, release. 普遍现象 in Taiwan. Release. That's, just make it really short. Release. That's good.
Because there is a rapid flow of air through the vocal folds at this time, the vocal folds vibrate while remaining slightly apart, thus producing breathy voice.
Breathy voice, okay. The glottal stop opening, the glottal opening is similar in size to what? When we're producing voiced breathy stops, what is the state of the glottis or the vocal folds? It's similar to what? When we're making those ba, da kinds of breathy voice stops, what is the state of the vocal folds? It's similar to what? Last few lines of this paragraph, middle of 155. Murmured and breathy is the same, remember. It's just another word for the same thing. So the size of the glottis when we're making these ba, da, ga kinds of stops, it's similar in size to what? When we're making voiceless stops, okay. And that's, I think, all pretty clear. Let's keep going.
Learn to produce a series of sounds with different voice onset times.
Good.
Starts by producing fully voiced stops.
Fully voiced stops.
Fully voiced stops.
Good.
B, d, g. See how long you can make the voicing continue during each of these sounds.
Okay, you're doing this again. You're putting a lot of falling tone tonics on there. Listen to how I do it, because when you imitate, you do it perfectly. See how long you can make the voicing continue.
See how long you can make the voicing continue.
Perfect. Continue.
Continue.
Right. So I think one thing you're doing, in addition to being a little too high, is you're falling. You've got these falling pitches. So you'll say like, see how long you can make the voicing continue. And it should be, see how long, continuation rise, you can make the voicing continue during each of these sounds. Can you try that once more?
See how long you can make the voicing continue.
Voicing.
You can make the voicing continue during each during each of these sounds.
Each of these sounds.
During each of these sounds.
There you go. Stop there. A lot of people have to run. There's a lecture at the 就读的那个会议室. It's going to be about Hideo Levy, and he's a former classmate of mine at Princeton, and he's a white American, but he writes 畅销小说 in Japanese. They call him Hideo Levy, or Levy, yeah, it's Ian Levy, yeah. And his English name, I believe, is Ian. And I knew him at Princeton, so I want to go hear this lecture. I want to hear about his books. That's it for Monday. What do you have to do? Notes. Actually, I'm going to give you another thing because we're just about done with the chapter. Exercises for Monday. Exercises for Monday. Written exercises. We'll go through the oral ones as well. They're not long. 不长, no big deal. Okay? We're going to finish the chapter on Monday. And then do the other things we mentioned. I'm not going to review them because we have to run. That's it for today. See you Monday.